Welcome back to Speller Tutorial Services. In today's video we're going to solve another quadratic equation. This time the quadratic equation includes trigonometric functions, and we're going to use the substitution method to solve this problem. We see here we have cosine squared x plus 2 cosine x minus 3 equals 0, and they've given us an interval for this testing because cosine oscillates, and this interval is going to be from 0 to 2 pi, and that's including the value of 0 and including the value of 2 pi, and that's depicted here by the square brackets and also depicted here by using the equal sign on these less than symbols. All right, we begin by making our substitution where u, and let's switch the color here, where u is going to be equal to cosine x. So that means that u squared will be equal to cosine x to the second power, which can be rewritten as cosine squared x. At this point we can make the substitutions where we can get rid of these cosine values. Cosine squared x we see here is the same thing as u squared plus 2 times cosine x. Here we see cosine x is the same thing as u. We're going to subtract 3, and that's set equal to 0. We're going to multiply these two numbers together. Understood that there's a 1 sitting in front here, so 1 times this negative 3 to give me a negative 3. So negative 3 is like my magic number. I call it a magic number. You're not going to see that anywhere. Something I just made up. With this magic number, I need to find its factors that add up to a positive 2. To get a negative 3, I could have a positive 1 and a negative 3, or I could have a negative 1 and a positive 3. When I add these factors together, 1 minus 3 gives me a negative 2, and negative 1 plus 3 gives me a positive 2. I'm looking for a positive 2 because that's my middle term here. So that goes away. So I'll be using the negative 1 and the positive 3. So I'm going to set up two factors. The first factor is going to be u minus 1. The second factor is going to be u plus 3. And again, those numbers came from these two factors here. At this point, to solve this equation, my multiplying factors to end up with a 0, I need to set each factor by itself equal to 0. So u minus 1 equals 0 and u plus 3 equals 0. Now I solve for u. Here I see that u is equal to a positive 1 and I have u is equal to a negative 3. Now that I have the two roots, I'm in terms of u. I need to switch back so that I'm in terms of cosine x, or in terms of x. In this case, u is the same thing as cosine x, so let's move here and rewrite. So cosine of x is equal to 1 and cosine of x is equal to negative 3. Let's take a look at this second one. Cosine x is equal to negative 3. We know from trigonometry that our cosine values oscillate. It's as high as a positive 1 and it'll get as low as a negative 1. Cosine value will not come out to be a negative 3, which will be less than negative 1. So we can disregard that as a solution. The next thing I want to do to make this clear is I want to draw the unit circle. Alright, the unit circle is just a circle that has a radius of 1, and I'm going to list the radians around this circle so that there'd be 0 radians, up here would be pi over 2, over here is pi radians, down here is 3 pi over 2 radians, and when I get back to 0 I'm at actually 2 pi radians. The other thing that I want to add to this drawing are the points along the circle that are on the axis. Because this is a unit circle, that means that my radius is 1. So the coordinates for this position here would be went over to the right 1 unit and didn't go up at all. Here I didn't go up, I didn't go to left or right 0 units and I went up 1. Here I went to the left negative 1 units and again stayed on the axis. And down here at the bottom I moved down negative 1. I got to do my xy first, my x first. I didn't move left or right, so that's going to give me 0, and I actually moved down 1 unit. Alright, other thing to remember is that the x coordinates are going to, those symbolize my cosine values, and the y coordinates symbolize my sine values. Please see some of my other videos on the trig functions to get a more in-depth explanation as to why cosine corresponds to x and sine corresponds to y. So in this particular problem, it says that the cosine of x is equal to 1. So I need to find the cosine value or the x values on my unit circle that come out to be 1. If we start here, we see that I have an x value of 1. So that means 0 and 2 pi are two possible solutions. Then let's continue around the unit circle. Here my x value is 0, so I can't use pi over 2. Here my x value is -1, so I can't use pi. And down here my x value is 0, so I can't use 3 pi over 2. Now I look back at my interval. My interval goes from 0 to 2 pi, and it includes 2 pi. So with that, I conclude that my two roots, or my two answers for this particular problem, are in fact 0 and 2 pi. Alright, that sums it up for this video by Speller Tutorial Services. Please friend us on Facebook and also subscribe to our YouTube channel, both found under the same name. And as always, thank you again for watching.